Hey, welcome back to Intelligent Founder AI. This is episode 9. Sorry I missed last week, but we're here now, and I'm really glad you're too, because this week something happened that I genuinely couldn't stop thinking about. And I reckon you're going to feel the same way once I walk you through it. So, Jensen Huang. And if you don't know him, which would be weird, but let's focus, he's the CEO of NVIDIA, the company that makes the chips that basically power all of modern AI. He showed up on the All In podcast last Thursday and said something that sent the internet into a complete meltdown. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this is pretty close. He said, if one of my $500,000 engineers comes to me at year end and says they only spent $5,000 in tokens, I'm going to go ape. Right. So what does that even mean? Tokens. Year end. Go ape. Let me unpack all of that because there's actually something really important going on underneath the viral moment. First, what's a token? But before that, quick reminder, this episode is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So hit follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. And if you want the full research behind each episode, become a paid subscriber to Intelligent Founder in the link below. We do 2 deep dives every week. Thursday is for a deep analysis on sectors like AI, telco, and business of it. And on Sunday, we do a podcast format. Okay, now the question was, what's token? So a token is basically the unit of currency in the AI world. When you type a message to ChatGPT or Claude or any large language model, that message gets broken up into little chunks called tokens. Each word is roughly 1 to 2 tokens. A sentence is maybe 20 or 30 tokens. A full document might be a few thousand tokens. And every time the AI processes your words and writes back to you, all of that costs tokens. Now, you pay for tokens. Not per second of use, not per month like Netflix. You pay per token consumed. And for a while, this was pretty cheap and sort of invisible. Like the electricity that runs your kettle. You don't really think about it. But here's where it gets interesting. Jensen Huang is saying, what if we started measuring how many tokens your engineers are consuming? And what if we started paying them in tokens on top of their salary? His proposal, and this came out of his GTC keynote the week before the podcast, is that a top engineer earning $500,000 a year should be consuming at least $250,000 worth of tokens on top of that. Half their salary again, in compute. He's calling tokens the new professional tool budget. Like, you know how architects get premium CAD software? Or how surgeons get the best equipment? Tokens, he's saying, are the equivalent for engineers in 2026. So why is this blowing up? Because it's being proposed by the guy who sells the machines that generate the tokens. Think about it like this. Imagine HP, the printer company, came out and said, we think every professional should be printing at least 500 pages a day. If your employees are printing less than that, they're not doing their jobs properly. And HP also happens to sell ink cartridges at premium prices. You'd be a little suspicious, right? That's the core of the Reddit reaction, which was brutal. Over 900 upvotes on one thread, and the top comment, over 600 upvotes, just said, I want to sell everyone the idea that they need much more of the product that fuels the thing I sell. Not subtle, but accurate. But, and this is the really interesting bit, the criticism is only half the story. The part that's actually real. Here's where most of the commentary missed something important. Tokens aren't just about individual productivity. The game has fundamentally changed in the last 12 months because of something called agentic AI. And I need to explain this because it changes the entire maths. When you ask ChatGPT a question, you use roughly 1,000 tokens. That's a one-off exchange. But now we're moving into a world where AI systems run autonomously. They don't just answer one question, they do tasks. An AI agent might search the web, read documents, run code, write emails, loop back on itself, check its own work, all without you pressing a single button. A task like that might consume 250,000 tokens in one run. An agent running continuously around the clock on complex work? We're talking billions of tokens, not thousands. Billions. Per day. So when Jensen Huang says engineers should be consuming $250,000 in tokens a year, He's not imagining someone sitting there chatting with ChatGPT. He's imagining engineers running fleets of autonomous AI agents, essentially having 100 AI colleagues working in parallel at all times, processing, building, testing, iterating. That's not hype. That's what NVIDIA's own engineers are actually doing. The company is genuinely trying to spend $2 billion on tokens for their engineering team this year. Across their 42,000 employees, that's roughly $47,000 per person on average. For their top engineers, yes, it scales to that $250,000 figure. The Jevons paradox, the economic engine nobody's talking about. Okay, so here's the bit of this story that I find genuinely fascinating, and it doesn't get covered in any of the mainstream pieces. There's a concept in economics called the Jevons paradox. It was named after a 19th century British economist called William Stanley Jevons, who noticed something weird about coal. When steam engine technology improved and coal became cheaper to use per unit of energy, people didn't use less coal overall. They used dramatically more. The efficiency gain expanded the market so much that total consumption exploded. The same thing is happening right now with AI tokens. The cost of running a large language model has dropped by something like 150 times in the last 3 years. 1 million tokens that cost $60 in 2021 now cost less than $1. You'd think that would mean AI budgets are shrinking, right? Completely wrong. Enterprise AI spending has gone up over 300% in the same period, because every time tokens get cheaper, new use cases become viable that weren't economically possible before. New use cases create new agent deployments. New agent deployments run 24/7, and 24/7 continuous agents consume tokens at a scale that more than offsets the cost reduction. This is the demand engine Jensen Huang is describing when he talks about $1 trillion in AI infrastructure demand through next year. He's not making that up. The Jevons paradox is real, and it's playing out in real time in the AI infrastructure market. And who benefits most from soaring token demand? The company that sells the chips that produce the tokens, which is NVIDIA, which posted $216 billion in revenue last year, up 65% year on year. So, yes, there is a massive conflict of interest. And yes, the underlying dynamic he's describing is also genuinely real. Both things are true. The 4 pillars of compensation, a new idea taking hold. Let me walk you through what's actually being proposed as a compensation framework, because this is where it gets practically important if you're a founder or a tech leader. Right now, senior engineers in Silicon Valley get paid in 4 ways. 1, base salary. 2, a cash bonus. 3, equity, usually shares or stock options that vest over a few years. And 4, this is the new one, a token budget. A VC called Thomas Tungus from Theory Ventures had been writing about this before Jensen Huang went viral. He estimated that for a senior engineer on a $375,000 salary, a $100,000 token budget on top takes their total package to $475,000. And companies are already using this as a recruiting tool. Engineers in competitive roles are apparently asking, "What's my token budget?" alongside, "What are my RSUs?" Now here's the catch, and this is something that's getting very little airtime in the discourse. Tokens are not like equity. Equity can appreciate. Equity vests. Equity represents real ownership in the company you're building. A token budget doesn't vest, it doesn't compound, it doesn't transfer to your next job. It gets consumed, it's gone. So if companies start substituting token budgets for salary increases or equity, which some critics fear, they're giving engineers something that looks like compensation but doesn't build personal wealth the same way. Jamal Glenn, a CFO and former VC, made this point really sharply. Tokens as compensation is a way for companies to inflate the headline package number without increasing the components that actually create long-term financial security for the person holding the job. Goodhart's law. Why this could go very wrong. There's a principle in management theory called Goodhart's law. It basically says when a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measure. If you tell an engineer, "I want you to consume $250,000 in tokens this year," some engineers will immediately start thinking, Not, how do I get the most value from AI? But how do I hit the number? You'll get agents running unnecessarily complex pipelines. You'll get frontier models used for tasks that a much cheaper, fine-tuned model would handle at 10 times lower cost. You'll get tokens burned on low-value work just to demonstrate engagement with AI. One Reddit comment that got a lot of traction put it perfectly. Engineers will now just use compute for no good reason, so the boss doesn't go ape. Like a company division burning inventory just to say they used it. The technically correct objective, from an actual AI engineering standpoint, is almost exactly the opposite of what Huang is incentivizing. Good AI engineering minimizes tokens per outcome. Caching, batching, model routing, smart prompt compression. These are the skills of a genuinely efficient AI native engineer. A metric that rewards token volume punishes token efficiency. The headcount question nobody wants to say out loud? Let me be direct about where this leads because it's the elephant in the room, and most commentators are dancing around it. If one engineer with a large token budget can genuinely do the work of 10 engineers, CFOs are going to do the maths. And they already are. Microsoft cut 15,000 jobs last year while committing $80 billion to AI infrastructure. Crypto.com laid off 12% of its workforce in March. While revenue was actually growing, they cited AI handling high-volume work. Block, Jack Dorsey's company, cut nearly half its headcount. Dorsey said, essentially, a smaller team with AI can do more and do it better. Around 55,000 U.S. tech jobs in 2025 were directly attributed to AI-driven restructuring. That's not a prediction. That already happened. So when Jensen Huang talks about 75,000 NVIDIA employees eventually working alongside 7.5 million AI agents, that's a 100-to-1 ratio of AI agents to humans. The implicit question is, at what point do you need fewer of the humans? This is the sharp end of the token economy thesis that the viral moment obscured. Token budgets as a perk is the friendly version. Token budgets as a signal that compute is replacing headcount is the version that keeps people up at night. What SK Telecom is actually doing and why it's different. I want to end on something a bit more hopeful because I think there is a genuinely good version of this story. SK Telecom, a major South Korean telecoms operator, rolled out a one AI agent per employee program across 80,000 people at the start of this year. Not just for engineers, for everyone. Customer service staff, logistics teams, HR, compliance. They gave every employee tools to build their own AI agent for their specific job without needing to write a single line of code. The results are striking. Security coding automation alone saved around 3,000 hours of engineer time per year. Customer service agents are handling higher volumes with better accuracy. The company's AI division revenue has grown significantly. The difference between what SK Telecom is doing and what Jensen Huang is proposing isn't the technology. It's the framing. SK Telecom is asking, how do we amplify every person we have? Huang's framing, however unintentionally, it creates a performance metric that can be gamed and a cost structure that makes CFOs ask whether they need as many people. The right version of the token economy is outcome per token, not tokens per engineer. The question shouldn't be, how much compute did you consume? It should be, what did you build, ship, or solve? And what did it cost in compute to get there? And that's the metric that actually distinguishes great AI native engineers from people who know how to burn tokens. So what should you actually do with this? If you're a founder or technical leader, here are the 3 things I'd take from this week's noise. 1. Start tracking token spend in your organization, but track it against outcomes, not as a standalone KPI. What did $100 of tokens produce? A feature? A resolved support ticket? A market analysis? Build that denominator. 2. If a recruiter or an employer starts quoting you a token budget as part of your comp, run the same analysis you'd run on equity. Does it vest? What happens if you leave? What's the cash equivalent? Don't let a big number in a non-compounding asset obscure what you're actually being paid. 3. The Jevons paradox is real. Inference costs will keep falling. Agent deployment will keep expanding. The companies and the products that ride this wave most effectively are the ones building on top of that infrastructure right now, not waiting to see how it settles. If you're building something that either reduces token waste or amplifies what teams can do per token, you're in a structurally strong position for the next 3 years, and that's the real story underneath the viral clip. Jensen Huang is both selling his product and accurately describing a structural shift. The job of a smart founder is to understand both sides of that and build accordingly. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Intelligent Founder and our daily AI Hot No BS takes on AI at AI Unfiltered, which is completely free. See you next week.